Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It is March 12th, 2025, and I have a special guest for you today. Yesterday, if you guys didn't catch my video, I made a short little clip about OSHA citations and how clear communication and direct team management is very key to controlling that and making sure OSHA doesn't knock on your door with those problems. But who better than to talk about this topic on clear communication than Mr. Jesse Hernandez? If you guys don't follow Jesse Hernandez, go ahead, click on his page. He's amazing. And you guys are pretty much going to have, if Jesse allows, a full hour of his awesomeness. And I'll let Mr. Jesse introduce himself to the audience.
Oh man, Rocio, thank you. A full hour. They're gonna get sick of me by the time we get to 30 minutes. Um, yeah, I'll give a little kind of back. Of course, Jesse. Everyone knows me as Jesse. My name's Jesus. That's the name my mom gave me, and I got to make sure everybody knows because if she finds out, she's gonna get mad at me. Um, I've been in the construction industry since 1995, like officially. Unofficially, since I was in seventh, eighth grade, helping my dad doing little trabajitos. My dad's a plumber, and so I got in the trade as an apprentice, as a summer job, and then I fell in love with it, and so I made a career of it. I was on the plumbing trade contractor side of the business for about just over 20 years. And then I went to work for the GC. I went to the dark side for about 3.5 years. Then I was in the safety space for just under a year, about 8 months long. Then I launched my business. And the interesting thing, I think I have an unfair advantage on people, but you can't tell anybody. In that, when I came up as an apprentice, of course, I was always pissed off because the journeymen were jerks. And then when I got my journeyman license, I was pissed off at the foreman because the foremen were jerks. They were slackers. And when I was a foreman, it was the superintendent. And every step I took along the way, what I learned was it's not so much that people are like intentionally or maliciously being ugly. We just speak in kind of different languages, and it's more pronounced between the field and the office, and subcontractor and general contractor and owner. And like the one thing that I got to see that's like the common thread through all the different roles I've played in my career is communication isn't hard, but we're only good at one part of it. And that's the delivering the message part. The listening part, nombre, we got a lot of work we're not great at it. And I'd say before I started my business, about those last 5 years, I got to travel all over the country, helping teams deploy change and do all kinds of cool stuff. And what stood out was there were not a lot, and that's kind of the scary part. There were some leaders that had an amazing, we'll just say, morale or culture on the job site or in their department or on their office. And the thing that they all did was they listened more. Like they were more focused on the human being and listening and understanding where people were coming from and what they were struggling with. And it seemed like that's kind of, that's the nucleus or the root of what makes the great outcomes. They weren't like big softies, right? They would also like lay it down. And if you weren't doing your deal, like they'd let you know. But they were more focused on the individual than most leaders are. Whereas most leaders, and when I say leaders, superintendent, foreman, PM, all of them, I think we've all learned along the way that the way to lead is to have all the answers and tell people what to do. But the great ones spend more time listening than they do telling. And I've decided to make it my mission, or one of my missions, is to help people do gooder at listening so that we can serve people.
Why is it that you think that in the field, is it just like a generational thing that they carry on that culture? Because I mean, I've heard it anywhere. You talk about any project here in California, any project in Texas, any project in Arizona. It's kind of unfortunate that everybody has that same stigma. And experience with project managers?
Yeah, I'm going to say this and I'll probably get canceled, but the generational thing, that's just an excuse because everybody over time has had to deal with the next generation. And so it's more of like me, how do I understand? I mean, I'm not a young cat, right? Look at I got the canas over here, but I can connect with the younger generation. I can connect with an older generation. I can connect with people in the office. I can connect with people in the field. I've been blessed with the ability to be flexible and adapt to who I'm around. But what the thing that I've done on purpose is just be more interested on the human being in front of me. Now, I think part of I don't want to say that every project manager sucks, but I know a lot of them have the same bad habits. And I think it's a way that we do business that creates the conditions for them to like earn their bad rap. Jonathan says, I'm canceled. And so
Canceled.
like think about folks, and this is in any position, but we'll stay in the project manager lane. Their career is managing things, right? They're coming up as a project engineer, an assistant PM, blah, blah, blah. And so they're really just managing things. They're processing information. And the ones that get really, really good at it get promoted. So you get promoted for being good at managing things. And then all of a sudden, you're responsible for managing people. It's a totally different skill set. And the whole primary focus or one of the primary focuses is managing the budget. And so if I've spent 5-10 years of my career managing budgets, processing information, and been rewarded for doing that very well, I'm going to apply the same methodology to managing people. And what ends up happening is I treat people like things. They are just a means to an end. And if my budget is getting out of line, if line items are looking like they're going to bust, I don't understand or maybe have the wherewithal to go and figure out why it's going over. What I'm going to do is say, hurry up, you're losing money. And that's where the friction starts. What do you think? Am I canceled or just a little canceled?
No, I maybe just a little bit canceled. You didn't cuss, so I think you're good. Um, on that end, yeah, you're right. I think you better than anybody else in the world knows what construction contractors feel, which is pressure. And they say,
Yes.
pressure. You can't get anything done without pressure.
Yep.
I think some of that is true, but I think it depends on how you set it right, because you just can't be too nice in the field, like, oh no, Johnny, go ahead, take your time, you're not feeling well, that's fine, it's another day to the project, nothing bad. And it's definitely
Yeah.
a different way to talk, but I also agree with you, because I know that when there's a bad culture, there's a lot of claims that stem out of that, a lot of unhappy people, a lot of
Yes.
turnover where people quit. And people will quit on you because they no longer want to take it. They can't work with the other trades in the project. They can't work with their own supervisor. And it becomes frustrating, right? Because a lot of these guys travel many hours, work
Yes.
day and night. They're up at 3 a.m. They leave their place by 4, but they're stuck in traffic for 3 to 4 hours. And it's the same thing with the project managers. Project managers are on site. I mean, a lot of people know project managers for like an energy drink and a cigarette. And it's like I've heard my own clients even say like, oh man, like darn it, that guy's here, like my life is going to be miserable, like
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be miserable. And when it comes to certificates of insurance, they're like, dude, I can't even have, like, this guy won't let me breathe. Like I can't step into this job. So it's true, you can't step on a job site without a certificate of insurance, but
Yeah.
knowing the retaliation, and then all that pressure that comes with it's a lot.
Yes. No, I agree. Construction, there's a tremendous amount of pressure in our industry. And everybody in the supply chain or in that value stream experiences a degree of that pressure. Now, there's two general ways that I see people handle it. The most popular one, which is the least effective long term, is to pass the pressure down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a project manager. My executive or VP is getting on me about the budget. So I'm going to turn around and yell at my superintendent and my foreman. And then I'm a superintendent or foreman. I just got yelled at. So I'm going to yell at my guys. And that's the general practice. That's what most people do. And what does that create? That creates people that are disengaged. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you don't know this, you can only tell me that we're over budget so many times before I don't care, right? Like, duh, thank you for telling me again. How about you help me figure out how to get back on budget? Or because people will, and for a period of time, people will say, hey, this thing's a problem. The way they're coordinating things, the delivery, the whatever, this is a problem. And those people need help with that problem, removing that problem. Why? Because that problem is going to cost us money. And when I'm talking about problems, I'm talking about like deliveries. I'm talking about subs. I'm talking about, we'll say, logistics on the job site, timing and sequencing of the work. When I was a plumber, I would tell my foreman, like, bro, the painters over there, they're getting stuff all over our fixtures. Like, we need to go talk to the GC or something, because I don't want to be cleaning the fixtures. My foreman would say, stop complaining, just do your job. Don't worry about that. Okay, fine. So guess what? I'm not going to come and tell them there's a problem anymore, right? And then when we got to go and clean the damn whatever off of the fixtures, that wasn't in our budget. That's going to cost us money. And so the time that we dismiss people's issues, every time we do that, we're like turning off their interest and their commitment to the goal and to the team every time we just reject them. And so eventually all you're getting is my hands and my back. And that's not, like, we have way more to offer, but it's the decision makers, the influencers on the job sites or in the business, that if they actually listened and took action to alleviate the pain of the people that are surfacing issues, that's when you start transforming the culture. But we got to listen more. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
What are we seeing? There's, especially if you work yep. 3 separate companies, 10 different PMs. It's not for the weak or faint of heart. 100%. I mean, so I'll give you an example. When I was a foreman, and I got to tell, like, for real. Now I'm like this really nice, positive.
No, that's why I brought you on, because you went through it. Like, what better person than yourself? You were the douchebag. So
exactly, I was so good at it too. When I was a foreman, Rocio, so I worked for a mechanical contractor here in San Antonio,
mm-hmm.
And what that means is we had a plumbing division, pipe fitting, like hydronic pipe fitters, and sheet metal for HVAC, air distribution, large commercial projects. I worked for TD Industries for like 17 years. When I got to the foreman level, the only thing I wanted to do was kick every other foreman's ass. I didn't care about morale. All of that was just BS to me. And so what did that mean? When we were on a project, if my sheet metal guy, the sheet metal crews, which, by the way, we all work for the same company, if they had a scissor lift that was newer that would help me, I would take it. If they had a tool, brand new tools that would help me, I would take it. Like,
oh, you're that guy. You were that guy.
Yeah, because I'm gonna win. And now my mindset back then was, I'm gonna win, and what that looks like is everybody losing, right? Like, everybody else has to lose in order for me to win. And so I did that for a long time. Now, luckily, I had a boss who pulled me to the side and he said, hey, Jess, he's like, look, you're a pretty good foreman. Your jobs come in on schedule-ish, and you come in on or under budget most of the time, but we can't promote you to superintendent. And I'm like, that's okay. I don't care. I just want to be a foreman. Like, I didn't have any aspirations to do that. And he said, well, we want you to, and you have the skill set or the capability to get there, but our people don't like working with you. They quit on you. They complain about you all the time. And our customers don't really like you on their job. I was like, yeah, I know. You just need to hire better people and get better customers. And he's like, no, just like, and here was the thing. And this is a universal nugget that people need to latch onto. What he told me was, Jess, if you want to expand your influence, your earning potential in this industry, you got to do two things. You have to deliver financial results, and you have to develop people. And I'm like, what do you freaking develop people? Like, what does that mean? He's like, yeah, if people are advancing and growing and promoting around you, that's a signal that you have more capability and more capacity to take on more responsibility. Right now, all you do is make money. People around you don't want to be around you. And that's okay, but you're not going to progress any further than where you are right now. I said, okay, I still really don't care. And then he said, okay, well, let me show you. This is the list of guys that, like, the succession plan, right? These are the guys that we're considering for superintendent on the next round. And I was like, man, those are scrubs. Like, I ain't going to report to those dummies. And he says, okay, so here's the deal. He told us, I can get you connected with, put you in some leadership development and the training that you'll need, that'll help you do better at helping people, developing people. But if you choose not to do it, I don't want to hear you complain at all when these guys are your boss. And I said, well, I ain't going to play for no scrub. So fine, I'll do the damn thing. And so now that took, man, over like 10 years, because all I was focused on prior to that was my performance, my budget, and I didn't care about people at all. And what I learned, a lot of lessons, that, man, if I just, like, it's the same knowledge, it's the same energy, I still want to win. But if I focus that energy into developing people, and now I want to be clear, when I say developing people, some people might think that I'm talking like patting them on the back and having freaking parades for them. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is setting a challenge, being clear, like, this is the objective, this is the challenge, this is what the expectation is of you, and giving them the resources to meet it. That's an important part, because most of us are really good at setting the challenge, but we suck at giving them the resources that because we kind of think like, boss, I figured it out. They can figure it out.
What do you mean by resources? Like, what resources?
Yeah. For example, using the example of my boss back then, I needed to develop a skill, right? I needed to develop interpersonal skills, communication, performance management. I needed some EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. So he set the challenge. And then he said, we're going to put you in these classes. Sign up for these classes. Well, it's going to a year, just like 2 years or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so those were the resources. He provided the resources for me to fill the gap that I had so that I could advance and meet the challenge he put in front of me. Now, a more tangible example is, if let's just say I'm a project manager or foreman or superintendent, it doesn't matter. And I tell my guys, hey, man, you need to be installing 280 foot a day of that cast iron. Like, that's the minimum expectation. If you do any less than that, we're not going to make budget and we're going to fall behind schedule. But if I tell them you got to install 280 feet of pipe, and I don't get them a scissor lift, and I don't provide them a bandsaw with bandsaw blades, and I don't provide them with extension cords that are compliant, and I don't provide them with the fundamental training on how to use those things and approach the work safely, I haven't given them the resources to meet the challenge. And that's where, again, a large segment of our industry fails to provide the resources. And I think, I don't know for sure, but I know at least the way I functioned was, well, I figured it out, they can figure it out. And that's just not good enough. Like,
or you make the assumption because they come from XYZ company, which they were doing, for the past 5 years, that they should be able to pick up the same pace, same everything. And that's not true, because I could tell you firsthand that everybody's company's policies and procedures are different.
Yes. So, I mean, that's another thing, right? Like, most of my experience comes from the field, but you see the same I've seen the same problems in the office and all the freaking departments. I hire a project manager, right? And I've seen this over and over. We hired this project manager. She's been a project manager for 10 years. And she's been on these big giant data centers. There's lots of experience. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Bring her in. And then we hire old boy from the other company. Same thing. They're going to be awesome. So you got two people that are very talented with great resumes. And the company cannot predict how successful they're going to be internally. It's largely dependent on who they get teamed up with, because some people teach and some people just sink or swim. And so if they're lucky enough to get put with a team that, has a process and knows how to execute and deliver, they'll learn the new ways of doing things. Another thing that happens is you hire those two project managers with big shiny resumes, but they've been on these mega projects, which are staffed with dozens and dozens of people. And so the work that they've been doing for the past 3 years is ultra specialized, but they have the title project manager. I'm not saying that they're not, but they have been entirely focused on just this one thing, element of project management. And then you bring them over here to be the project manager for an entire project. And now they're responsible for procurement, and they're responsible for managing the budget, for client relations, and they don't have that experience. And so to your point, what companies need to be like ultra clear about is title for title. That's a bad exchange, because you don't know what kind of experience they actually have. And you need to learn that, right? That's interview process and all that other stuff. Now, I've never been good at hiring, so it's not easy for me to judge that or give advice on that. But the other catch, we'll say backstop to help mitigate that risk is, do you have a system? And this is for all your watchers out there, Rocio. Do you have a system to integrate people, like experienced hires, to integrate them into the way you do things, in which that after whatever the timeline is, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, they can go out and execute in adherence and compliance with your methods, processes, and procedures? Most companies don't have that. And so what do they say? They say it's a generational problem. It's a talent problem. And here's the thing. I'll tell you right now, I could wave my magic wand and get them the most damn talented people in the country to come to their business right now. And they still could not predict who's going to be successful and who's not going to be. Because the super high performers, they're not going to tolerate a wishy-washy approach to doing business. They'll go find somebody that has their stuff together. And the rest of them is going to be sink or swim, because they don't have any methodology to integrate people into their specific system, because everybody functions differently. You know this. You get to see it like up close and center.
Mm-hmm. And then can you elaborate what you mean by the process? Like
Yeah. So I'll make it like real simple, right? I'll give a bad example, one that I've experienced, and then the one that I recommend. So I got hired, and they said, "Okay, you're going to do this job." I said, "Okay, what's the job?" "Well, it's something like this." "Okay, cool, fine, let's go do it. And we have an onboarding program." I said, "Badass." So what's that mean? Well, that means that you're going to go and spend time with so-and-so in California, and so in Dallas, and so in Florida. And because they're doing the job, so you're going to go and shadow them so you could learn what the job is. Okay, that's pretty good. So I go to Dallas, and I'm like, all right, like I got a bunch of questions. The guy in Dallas says, "Man, I got a lot of meetings to go to." So like, go into our website, go into our wiki or whatever it was, and like any questions you have, you can find the information there. Okay. So I did that for 2 days. Then I went to California, and I'm like, "Hey man, like I got a lot of questions." He's like, "Okay, well, let's go visit job sites." Yeah, but I got questions. Yeah. Let's go visit job sites. Okay. Then I went to Florida, and he's like, "Hey man, like I got you a spot here in the office for you to work on whatever you got to. I'm going to be off for the next couple of days."
Oh, my favorite.
Right. Like, so now, did they have an onboarding program? Technically, yes, they said they did. And then we scheduled some travel. That's an exact, but what would have been appropriate, right? I'm a new freak from a different, this is when I went from the trade to the general contractor side. I've been on the trade on the subcontractor side of the business for my entire career. I have no idea how the general contractor functions or operates. The only idea I had was they're all just a bunch of jerks. I
Mhm.
learned that that wasn't true, right? They got problems too. They're human beings just like everybody else. But what, like fundamentally, how do we do expense reports? How do we do timesheets, right? What's the protocol for communication? How do we handle scheduling travel? What is the terminology or the language for our department? And what are some strategies that the other people doing my job use to do their job? What's the tech stack? Right? What are the things that we use that everybody uses to communicate and do things through? How do we surface ideas? Like all of these questions, that's the process. What are the fundamental core things that I'm going to be doing? So if I know what that is, then it's like, okay, how do we make sure that this dummy that we just hired from a trade contractor at least understands what that looks like and where to find that information? So the process to help them understand what that is, right? Like I'll use a project manager example. Everybody uses the hell out of Procore. And so if I'm coming in and you say, do I use Procore? And I say, yes, that doesn't mean that company A uses Procore the same way company B does. And so being deliberate about having a 4 hour session or time block to walk people through, like, this is how we use Procore, this is how we set up our projects, this we use this piece and this piece, we don't use this piece and this piece, because otherwise, I mean, it's super expensive, right? I'm just figuring it out and doing it wrong and finding out after I spend hours and hours doing it the way I know how to do it, that that's not the way you do it. And I'm like repeating, losing money, getting frustrated. And that's largely everyone's experience out there. So again, to answer your question, like the process is answering the question, what are the core functions of this role as defined by us, company, super duper company? We'll just say that's the name of the company. What are the core functions of this role? How do we do it? And what's the timeline to introduce people and integrate people to the way we do it to be extra clear? Like, I know how you process submittals. This is how we process submittals. I know how you do timesheets. This is how we do timesheets. I know how you schedule vacation. This is how we schedule vacation. I know it sounds kindergarten, Rocio, but if people invested, like the people that invest time and effort there, this is our risk management protocol. This is our
Mhm.
crisis response plan. Like all of that, I don't need to be learning about my freaking crisis response plan after somebody's been injured, right? Like I need to know what the hell that is before I even go out to the job site. And so we got a long way to go. And I'm also going to say this, like, if you have videos that you make people watch, like that's okay, but that's weak sauce. That's that ain't enough. I'm sorry, I went on a rant.
No, it's not, because I mean, with construction, it's like this. You need men on the job, especially when you are expanding. Like many of my clients, they go from 20 people to next thing 100, and next thing there are 200. But all
Yes.
this is going so quick and rapid that okay, like I need a guy on the job like now, ASAP. We need to get this. This guy has no experience, but we're gonna put him over here with this guy. He knows how to teach guys, and this guy's over here. But you just end up kind of throwing, mud and see what sticks.
Yes.
And with that, it comes down to communication, because obviously at the end of the day, contractors, they want to make sure that their employees are safe and there's no claim. As you know, um, construction is super high risk. At
Yep.
any instant, someone leaves something out, they cause an accident, or you didn't advise that so and so got hurt in the job, and next thing
Yep.
you know, you get a notice, or someone was late, someone didn't make it, someone quit, and all of
Yep.
this isn't reported, and it just creates like a little dominoes effect, right? Because
Yeah.
then you have the president going over here. Well, who's in charge of this new group? Who's the guy? Get that guy on the phone. And you get I've been in situations where we're trying to figure out where did this happen? How did it happen? And next, we're making like 5 different phone calls connecting, and they could have been instant. Like, all right, I know Jose is working for this team over here. We have this team assigned, and like back to your point in the processes, it's very important that you have it down. But now I want to take it to you, Jesse, on what you provide and how you've been successful in turning companies upside down, just like I do with claims. I come in usually when people have problems, either before it's going to explode or already exploded. And obviously, with you, you've been very successful in training and developing leaders. Because like at the end of the day, it comes down to what you said: leadership, developing people that teach you. And I want to dive into what you provide. So let's talk about your program.
Thank you for that, Rocio. So the very first thing anybody needs to know is that I take a 100% people-centered approach. And so what that means is, sure, we're going to get into like fact-based problem solving and improving production and improving quality and securing predictable timelines of delivery. Like, we're going to do all of that, but we're going to do it to make it from the perspective of making that work better for the men and women that do the work. Mm-hmm. And so if decision makers, like the folks that want to work with me, if they think that they're going to be able to like contract me and like send me an email once in a while, I'm not their guy, right? Like if they want me to change the oil for them, they need another person, because I can't help that. I can help leaders who are committed to investing in who they got. And I'm talking about not just money, because money's cheap, money's easy. So leaders that are
let's dive into a little bit for commitment, for the viewers who are listening and they're like, hey, I'm kind of interested. Jesse sounds cool. What he's talking about commitment to what would he require from me?
Yeah. So simple, like very simple. I'll give you an example. I had one guy reach out. This was about 1.5 years ago. He said, hey man, I want some training. We want to train on this specific system that I teach, Last Planner system. And I want to have it in the next 90 days. I said, okay, cool. And so let's pick a date, And I said, okay, like what I need, 2 things, minimum ask. Could you send out the calendar invite to your team and me? Ask number 1. Ask number 2, can you kick us off on the day of? And if you're available, if you could be there the whole day, that would be great. He said, I'm not going to send out an email. Why can't you? And I said, well, because your people don't know me and you're the damn boss. They're going to respond to you more than they would respond to me. So right there, if you're not willing to send a freaking email, you have you don't have the right amount of commitment for me. Maybe I'm just needy, right? Now, in terms of him being there in the room to kick it off, that is a display of visible leadership, right? You're making an investment of me to come in and an investment in your people, but you can't be there to say, this is goofball Jesse, and this is why it's important to the business. The problem with that is, yes, I can go do the pep rally. I'm entertaining. I'm funny. I'm good looking. Like, we're going to have a good time, but you're not going to have the business impact that you're seeking. So I need you to like be willing to change the oil with me so that your people can see your commitment. And I don't care if you're on your phone updating your MySpace. If you're in the room and you're the influential person with a lot of responsibility, that sends a message to your people. And that's going to like pay dividends in terms of getting the thing that you want to achieve. So I'll give you another example that's on the opposite extreme. We were designing some training for this organization. They were making a cultural shift and they wanted to focus more like on collaborative planning with the people-centered focus and problem solving and all this other stuff. I said, okay. And so we're talking about the thing. And I said, okay, well, this is what I think it looks like. And one of the general superintendents says, well, wait a minute. If we're going to make all of our people, 120 people, project managers, superintendents, assistant PMs, like their whole crew, if we're going to make all our people go through this, shouldn't I or shouldn't we? And I'm like, dude, that's like a dream come true for me as a consultant trainer. And they said, okay, we'll add another session just for us. I'm like, cool. And then they said, well, can we be present? We had like 7 more sessions after that with the different groups. Can we be present for those? I'm like, hell yeah. Well, can we like contribute? Like, yes. And so not only did they physically go through the learning themselves, a whole day of learning, torture with me, every session we had after that, they had at least one general superintendent and one project director in the room all day long. And sometimes they had 3 or 4 or 5 of them. And so commitment, that's what I'm talking about in terms of commitment. And then guess what? Their people took it seriously. Their people were excited. Their people started doing things. They took it upon themselves to say, hey, this seems pretty important. Let's go do that. And so the people-centered focus is that we're going to make things better for your people. And the commitment is ultra, ultra, ultra important. I'm not saying you got to be at everything all the time. I just got lucky with those guys. But we need to have some level of visible leadership from the most influential people with the greatest amount of responsibility so that it sticks. Because I'm going to get paid, right? Like I'm going to send my invoice. But if it doesn't stick, sure, I failed. But you could have helped. Like, yeah, maybe that's it, right? I need help. So anyways, we were talking about maybe I'll give another little story to help paint a picture of what I do. We're talking about the foreman, like people position for position, project manager for projects, different for every company. So one of the things that I like, my second favoriteest thing to do is in person with foremen and superintendents of trade contractors, right? Specialty subcontractors, and teaching them the fundamental planning skills. Well, I shouldn't even call them fundamental because they're like the skills to do a weekly work plan, goal setting actionable plans, long-term plans, constraint management, collaborative planning, like the whole thing. And so one organization said, hey, we got foremen, we got superintendents, we're growing, we're growing super, super fast. And we're to a point like we're hiring all these people and they all have their own mañas, right? They all have their own movida, their own way of doing the thing. But we as a corporation don't have our own way. We need help developing that. Said, okay, cool. Here's kind of the big picture of the huge investment. And they said, okay, good. So what we did is we started the training. This is what it looks like. This is how you do it. Hands-on in the room, doing the thing. And now, so that was phase 1, which was a lot of effort. It was amazing. And then they said, okay, now that we've got everybody baseline trained, like exposed, now they got to go do it like in real life, right? What they want to do now is design internal training, because what I'm teaching it's applicable to any trade, period. They said, now we want to design an internal training specifically for us on how we're going to use the things that you taught us, along with other stuff. So that's what we're working on right now is how do we design that curriculum? What's necessary? What's the minimum expectation to be a foreman in that company? And so that whole life cycle of like introduction, teach them fundamentals, let them go do the thing, and then going into like the dirty details of designing something long-term. Like, I'm not going to be delivering that training that we design. They are, which is good. Like they need to take it and make it their own thing. So that's one of the ways that I'll say, like I said earlier, it's my second favorite way to help companies. And I think it's pretty attractive to we'll say CEOs and folks that are making decisions and managing or operating the business. Because when these folks get the skill to plan, it stabilizes their manpower needs. Like they don't have the peaks and valleys. Rather, you'll still have them. They're just not as pronounced because people are thinking out a little bit further and taking effort to remove the roadblocks, the problems that are going to impact production. Because right now, most of the folks are dealing with production problems. And that problem was always there. They just couldn't see it. And now it's stopping and costing us money. And so the way the method is like, how do we identify those things early so we can eliminate them before they cost us money? They're there. I promise you they're there. But we just don't have a method or a system to surface them and manage them. And so that's what I help them with.
So let me ask you, let's say for a company that has somewhat of a system, they,
Yeah.
have procedures and maybe like a one pager, or like they have a guy that teaches it. For
Yep.
someone that wants to develop that, is that like something that you would come in and sit down with them and the whole team to, I guess, because sometimes people don't know where to start with. They're like,
Yep.
hey, like I'm growing so quick, but I'm noticing that we're falling back on this side, or my superintendent is just bumping heads with these people, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love having those conversations. So on one hand, in terms of like the
Because I
planning,
know you're the king of breaking things down. I mean, I've sat in some of your seminars, and you are like, you have like, for one subject, like 12 different. If you guys have never sat down in Jesse's webinars or his talks, he has like little boxes now connect, and like you're gonna extract this. Literally, like we will extract one question, one topic. It even has me scratching my head. I'm like, I don't know, I never thought about that.
I obsess a little bit. Yes. Thank you for that. Um, so yes, like what I just described is like tactical blocking and tackling. And a lot of times like that's going to help stabilize the environment so that we can do further investigation. Because most of the time, this, people are like, they're in trouble right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so to develop a long-term training, professional development, soft skill, like we have problems right now. We ain't got time to pontificate. And so the general, what seems to be coming or recurring, right? The general ask is, I need a problem stopping this leak, right? There's the stopping the bleeding. And the biggest opportunity right now is with our field. Okay, cool. I got something for that. Let's get that done. Let's do something to make that better. There's a lot of things that we can do depending on what the problem is, right? I'm going to get super, super specific so that we can design something that's meaningful and impactful in the short term. In the long term, let's just say superintendent. I mean, and everybody's experiencing this, whether you're growing or not, and it's going to get worse. In the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to get so painful.
Why do you say that?
Because the baby boomers are retiring, right?
Oh, yeah.
More and more people are leaving the industry. And so what that means is we're promoting people faster than we have ever promoted them ever, like out of necessity. So not only are we promoting people, let's say with 3 or 4 years when you needed to have 6 or 7 years to go from a journeyman to an installer, right? We're cutting the time in half because we got to. And the volume of work that is out there right now with the decreasing or dwindling workforce, it's getting further and further out of balance. And so we don't have the time for the people that did take time to invest and train and develop their people. They don't have the time to do that anymore because the freaking job starts tomorrow. Like, we got the job, we got to go. And so the point is this: we can go and get your people trained up. If you promoted them too fast, we can shore them up with some fundamental skills to help them be more effective at their job. Now, here's the thing, like the super important thing that everybody, like, you wouldn't know unless you lived it. As a business owner, I understand the value of revenue and gross margin and estimated earnings and all that stuff. As a foreman, I didn't care, right? But I know how miserable I was swimming in failure all the time. That existence sucks, right? You wonder why so many construction professionals are grouchy. It's because all they ever hear is you're over budget, you're behind schedule, you need to hurry up, you screwed up, your guys did a little, right? Like nothing positive. And so the investment in training that level of the workforce, foremen and superintendents and lead men, it's going to have some financial benefit for the company, but it's also going to improve the quality of life for these individuals, because I hear it all and I love it. It's one of my favorite things to hear. It's like, dude, I'm so glad I came to this class. I thought it was going to be bullshit, but these are the things that I have been needing. or I just got promoted to this damn role and I had no idea what I was doing. I was scared, and now I have a little more, like, I got some confidence to go and do it because now I have now I know how to think about it. And so you're helping the human being, right? And that's where I'm coming from. How can we help that human being? Now, if you got, let's just say, your superintendents and your project managers, because this is like my expertise, because I know how to do it wrong. I'm an expert at that. Like the divide between the field and the office, I completely understand how that functions and a lot of the reasons why. Why? Because I used to intentionally make it happen.
Like,
And so,
can you elaborate on that?
yeah. So like, it's there is a natural divide, I think, between the office and the field, right? Like, I know me, when I used to go to the office for the quarterly dinner meeting, whatever it was, people would make faces because I would bring mud in. And to me, it's like, I just left the freaking job site to come to this stupid meeting you said I had to be at. And you're going to make faces because I got mud on my boots for doing I'm doing my job. I don't understand that. So there's a natural thing, right? Now, the other side, when a project manager comes out to the job, I never hesitated as, hey, man, you might get your pretty shoes muddy. You might want to change them shoes, college boy or college girl, right? Like, we do these kinds of things. Now, I did that I was really, really good at it. And that's not a good thing. Anyways, part of the problem is project managers, they think about projects in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of course. But guess what? Our field staff, we don't install dollars. We install stuff, sheetrock, lights, windows, plumbing, right? We install things. We install units. There's units of installation. Foremen and superintendents, what do they manage? They manage hours, labor hours. They're projecting how much longer it's going to take, how many hours that they've spent. And so that's like 3 different languages right there. Units of install, hours, and dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're having an argument. A lot of that argument is because we don't have the means to translate from dollars to hours, from hours to units of installation. And so that simple thing, because you noted on it earlier, right? Like, I'm obsessive. So when I was a foreman, I'm like, wait a minute, how I've been doing my job and everything was good last week, but now all of a sudden I'm over budget. Like, how did that happen? Well, don't worry about it. Hurry up. Like, no, bull. You're not going to tell me. Don't worry about it. I want to know. So I learned how to read the estimates and the quick pens in the background and and like, this is how all of this works. Now I understand what you're saying. It's not an accusation. It's a statement of fact, but you're saying it in a context that I don't understand. Now, of course, when I was a plumber and a foreman, I didn't speak that way. I was like, you're just full of shit. That's what I would say. But now I understand it.
And like, for the people that, are on the field, what's a great way to translate that?
Yeah. So if I was in the field again,
Mm-hmm.
what I would say is, okay, how much do I have to install per week so that I can stay on budget? That's what I need to know. How many water closets do I need to slap on the wall? How many feet of pipe do I need to install so that per week, so that I'm on budget? That's what I need to know, because I can count how much I've done. And you know what? Again, it has this magical effect. Now I know what success looks like every day. If I got to install 2,000 feet in a week, what does that mean? That means every day I got to hit 400 feet a day. And I can self-regulate to say, man, I'm at 180 and it's lunchtime. I'm going to have to pick it up after lunch. Or maybe there's the way I'm doing it is not the best way to do it. Whatever, right?
Let me ask you, how do you manage the tension? Because there's friction, right, when you call out someone for not doing their job. So,
Yep.
How do you manage, or how do you go about when you, as a supervisor, you notice that someone's slacking?
Yep. Oh, that's easy. So here's the thing: part of it is a process question, and the other one is an accountability question. So I'm going to start with the accountability issue, right? Because I hear this all the time. Jess, the problem is accountability. and I'm hearing it from the leader. And I'm like, okay, I know where the problem is, right? And so, super simple. if you want accountability, be accountable. And so what does that mean? When I'm the superintendent, when I'm the foreman, and I set measurable targets, I set the challenge, and I give them the resources to meet the challenge. My job as a foreman is when they fail to meet the expectation is to provide them with a little extra support, and they continue to fail to meet the expectation, follow the process. That's me being accountable to the role of a foreman or a superintendent. And so what's the process? Some people have a process, some people don't. The one I'm most familiar with is be clear, set measurable goals, give them the resources to do it, measure performance. If they fail to meet it, intervene, figure out how to get them there. If they fail to meet it again, are they willing and are they capable? If they're capable, that's important. If they're not willing, we got to start taking corrective action, right? We got to have a one-on-one conversation. I got to document it. We got to do it again. Next time it pops up, then I got to have another conversation. I got to do a write-up because that's the process. That's me being accountable to my commitment of as a foreman or a superintendent. If they continue to persist with the same behavior, we got to have a conversation, another write-up, they get suspended. And if it doesn't change, guess what? I release them to the industry. That's not fun. Now, I'll tell you, most foremen and superintendents will not have a documented conversation, will not do a write-up, will not do a suspension. They won't even say, Rocio, you're slacking off, pick it up. They won't have a direct conversation. They'll piss and moan and make comments until they get frustrated, and then they want to fire the person. And then when they go to HR says, you can't do that. Now you set us up for a claim because there's no history or backup because you failed to adhere to the process, which again goes back to accountability. If I'm accountable to the commitment I made as a foreman, as a superintendent, a person of authority, I will follow the process. And guess what? When I'm accountable, I seem to end up surrounded with accountable people.
Yeah, and then that stands for management, right? Because who's accountable? You just can't be mad at your foreman because it's like, oh, all of a sudden now I'm mad because he got someone pissed off, and now this guy it wants to sue me or is creating chaos. But did I, as management, as the VP, as this guy, did I follow up my foreman? Did I tell him, or did I just say, let go of the guy?
Yeah.
Like, do
no,
we have
I'll
a
give you,
whole thing?
I'll give you a real example. So when I got to the production manager level, what that meant was I got to manage all our labor for every project that we had in San Antonio. And I was responsible for a lot of things. Anyways, we had an issue, and I have an ear. Like when I hear people complain about somebody that's late or that's not doing what they're supposed to, it sticks in my head, right? Like I can't forget it. And then I hear them complain about it again. I'm like, okay, that's a problem. That's twice in a month. Mm-hmm. And then I hear like, okay, yeah. So I would talk to my superintendent. I say, hey man, like I hear so-and-so, he's got whatever, got problems out there. Yeah. Like, okay, well, I need you to talk to him. Like, yep, I had the conversation. Okay, when? It's right here on my calendar. Awesome, good job. If you've already done that, I need you to go and have a formal write-up with him. Oh man, I knew you were like, I'm just letting you know, I need you to have the write-up. Okay, awesome. Come back and I hear it again. Say, hey man, last time we talked, I asked you to do the write-up. Have you done the write-up? No. Okay, I'm going to come out there Friday. And he says, like, for real, is what he said. He's like, oh, dude, that would be so helpful. I'm like, what? He's like, you're going to write them up? I'm like, oh, no. I'm going to come out there to do my job. I may do a write-up, but it's not going to be on him. He said, oh, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to write you up for failure to follow direction, to failure to adhere to the process. So you have a choice. You go and do your job as a superintendent, or I'm going to do my job as a production manager, right? And so what's the process? Follow the process, be accountable to my commitment as of a leader, supervisor, manager. That's not easy. It's not. I hated it. I mean, even though I had the reputation, like everybody would joke, like Jesse has all the walls in his house are wallpapered with all the write-ups that he's done. But I'm going to tell you, with the exception of 2 write-ups that I did, most of the time it was a very productive and meaningful engagement. Like, it wasn't fun, but the guys were like, man, I had no idea that that was a problem. Or they had a major life situation that they were dealing with that we just didn't know about, because they're not, they're just trying to deal with it. The car broke down, the truck broke down, the wife, the kids, they all in one vehicle. So they all got to get to school. She's got to get to work. And so he's coming in last because he's making sure everybody goes where they need to go. Like, oh shit. Okay. Well, what can we do to accommodate that? Like, there was really important things that I discovered as a result of following the process. And so helping people understand what those processes are and how to think and leverage them is another thing I get to help people with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everybody has experience, kicking the can down the road is not fun, especially because you're like, you know what, whatever, this. And then there's, tension when there's a problem between, both parties or multiple parties. And then until one day, someone is upset and they come out, obviously when someone's upset, their voice are a little more higher or lower.
Yeah.
And the attitude comes out, and maybe the body language does too. And that just creates a whole different thing versus if you were to talk about and be clear of what was expected, be upfront. This is what we expect. This was what needs to be done right from the beginning versus like, dude, I thought we were cool. Now you're like,
right.
The problem.
Yep. No, it's consistent. Like, when people understood that I was consistently going to follow the process, guess what they did? They said, Jesse, that's the way he is. We better do what we're supposed to do, or not be on Jesse's projects, right? Not be there because he's not, like, it's going to be a problem. And that was okay too. Like, we worked all of that out.
Yeah. Can't believe it's almost an hour with you. Talk about this topic forever. But I want to ask the audience right now if there are any questions for Mr. Jesse, as we have 4 minutes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment them down. And if you're not following Mr. Jesse, he's on my page. And Jesse, if people want to get in contact with you, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, the 2 best ways is obviously right here on LinkedIn. If you just search Jesse Depth Builder, you'll find my profile, because like I have my real Jesus on my profile because my mom will get mad at me. But if you just search Jesse Depth Builder, hit me a DM, give me a like or a comment on one of my posts. That would be freaking amazing. But send me a DM and we'll connect and we'll figure it out. Or if you want to learn more like of the services that I provide, you can go to my website, which is depthbuilder.com. And there's a little more information about the different things I do, like the standard things I do. And when I say standard, that also what that means is like, if you need, for people that need something really, they think like their situation super, super unique, I can help. That's be cool to learn about what it is, because I haven't found a situation that was so far in left field that I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do. But I would like to find one. That would be interesting.
There you go. There's a challenge, guys. So if you guys want to throw Jesse a problem, he's here to catch you and solve it for you guys. And he's also on YouTube. So if you guys want to listen to him and his stories and know how he's been able to help out people, go ahead, listen to him. And dude, like I said, he's amazing. No better person than him himself to talk about this, as he literally stemmed from it and has seen the problems that your employees are seeing out on the project. And you, as a construction owner, you see it from the opposite side.
Yeah.
So very happy to have you and honored to have you on here, Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Ms. Rocio. This was awesome. Man, you asked me some tough questions. I wonder how many lies I told.
No, you did good, man. But yeah, so we don't have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Mr. Jesse. He's on here, and I'll make sure to put his website under the comments as well. Thank you so much, guys. Catch you on the next one.
Later. Peace.